Hey, thank you so much for joining another episode of Celeste the Therapist podcast. My name is Celeste. I'm a therapist from Boston. If you're new here, thank you for being here. If you're listening to me on the audio platform, don't forget I am on YouTube as well. You can find these episodes streaming on YouTube. Also, you clearly already know because I see the numbers. I see y'all rocking with me. I started a new series within the platform called The Daily Shift. I'm so excited about. This is a place where you will be able to get daily content from me where I am going to be talking about different things. But the difference is that it's going to be in less than 3 minutes, right? We're going to be 3 minutes or less. Some of them are 2 minutes, 3 minutes, but every morning you go in your car, you get right before you go to work, you press play. That this is something I do on a regular basis. I literally will get up in the morning and press play on something to help me kind of like give myself some medicine, right? So you can kind of look at this as giving yourself some medicine for living life. And if you are enjoying the episodes, hit me up, let me know. But I am grateful to you all for rocking out with me. So that is the daily shift. We will still be doing the long form content that I do that's within 30 minutes where we are learning about something. So if you're new here and you found me from the daily shift, thank you for being here. But you can grab a notebook and take notes. I give out homework assignments. This is to help you get better. In order for us to work on change, if you're somebody that feels stuck, in order to work on change, you have to give your mind new information. If you don't give your mind new information, it's only going to have the old information that it's had over the years. And if you've had a lot of hard times, imagine how hard life can feel when you don't give it new information. Today's series, we're doing a 6-part series and we're going to break it up into 6 weeks. We're not going to wait bi-weekly. We're going to do this weekly. We're coming from this book right here, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, How to Heal from Distant, Rejecting, or Self-Involved Parents. So we're going to jump right into the content. And if you are on audio podcasts and that's where you found me, I also provide visuals for these episodes. If you're somebody like me that needs the visualization, head on over to YouTube, just search Celeste the Therapist. So episode 1, we're talking about when the parent is physically present but emotionally absent, right? Um, I always do that. Hold on. Okay. So let's go to the next slide. So the intent behind this episode is to help you understand what has happened. This is not about blaming. This is about the awareness. In order for you to heal anything, you have to be aware that it exists, right? A lot of times we want change, but we don't want to like look at what's happening, right? We're just treating the symptoms, right? And if you can get to the root of the problem, then you can actually work on the symptoms better. But a lot of times we're just treating the symptoms, but we're not going to the root. And in order to go to the root, I think understanding how your upbringing may have been and how it has affected you, it's not about right or wrong. In some cases, parents were absolutely wrong for how they handled you as a child. And I also want to say, we're talking about like adult children of immature parents. You pay attention, if you're a parent, pay attention to how this may apply to you, right? Again, we're not talking about blame. We are needing to come to an understanding on what is happening with us. And because you are products, we are products of our environment. That doesn't mean we have to continue the trajectory, but the way that we grew up, whether intentionally or not, sometimes we may mimic some of the same behaviors. So just pay attention to how this may apply to you without judging yourself for it. So, understanding emotional immaturity. So, emotional immaturity, it involves limited capacity to manage emotions. This often results in avoidance of accountability and focus on personal needs, creating challenges in relationships and personal growth. So, sometimes when this book is talking about adult children of parents, emotionally immature parents, that is what emotional immaturity is. Not having the capacity to manage emotions. Your emotions could be all over the place, right? So you may have grown up like that, or you may realize, like, you know what? I may be struggling with some of that right now. Um, so what does it look like? Difficulty tolerating emotions, right? So your parent may have had a hard time tolerating their emotions and your emotions, prioritizing comfort over connection. We're not going to talk about hard stuff, right? If I have a hard time being vulnerable with myself, I'm not going to be able to allow you to be vulnerable with me, right? And so as a child, if you don't have that space to be vulnerable, to talk about what's wrong or what's hurting you, you may find yourself internalizing everything. Inconsistent empathy and attunement, like nothing is consistent with the way care has been delivered to you. It depends on how your parent may have felt at the time. Also, pay attention to yourself as a parent. Do you feel like you are consistent with the empathy and care that you are providing your children, right? Does it depend on how you're feeling? And I want to say, because, in the Black community, we grow up learning how to survive. And I'll see a lot of I see a lot of, like, reels, I laugh, but then I have the therapist hat on me and think about, like, the people I work with and the struggle that they have because their parent would come home upset, screaming about what's not being done. And, we joke about it. And in the Black community, it's like common. How do you deal with pain? We comedic relief. But it doesn't mean your parent's a bad person, but having a household where your parents' emotions were very inconsistent, it can create some anxiety within you, right? So just be mindful of that when I talk about the inconsistency and the way the care was given. Avoidance, defensiveness, or emotional shutdown, right? Maybe you want to talk about something hard with your parent, you shut down. Or does your child want to talk about hard things with you, right? Are you shutting down? Are you avoiding? Parenting from ego, right? Our ego doesn't want us to admit that we're wrong or admit that we're having a hard time or take accountability. There is fear around going deeper into those unresolved wounds. So just these are some signs and behaviors of somebody that might be emotionally immature. And as you can see, it says emotional immaturity does not equal being a bad parent, but it's about the limited emotional capacity that you have, right? And a lot of times we don't realize that we have a limited emotional capacity. For a long time, I had a limited emotional capacity because all I was doing was working. This is before I had kids, giving, and I felt irritable, right? So when you haven't learned how to care for yourself, when you haven't learned how to be real with yourself about what you are going through, it'd be hard for you to do that with a child. What it may have looked like growing up, your feelings may have been dismissed or rushed, right, or intellectualized. That happens a lot if you're growing up with parents that had to survive, that had to work. A lot of parents sometimes will find themselves feeling like, well, you had it better than me, right? Providing you a roof over your head, clothes, like maybe your parent didn't have all of those things, right? And so if you are talking about some emotional need, they may dismiss that because for them, they can't understand why that is an issue when you have these things because your baseline is different from their baseline. Let's look at it with you, right? If you have a child that might be struggling and maybe you are giving them everything, their needs are being provided and you don't understand, it's okay that you don't understand. Admit you don't understand, but also understand that their baseline for where they are in life is completely different from yours. So the needs that they have are going to look different from yours. That's just the fact. We're human. We are not all made the same. We do not all have the same we don't all have the same experiences, right? So it's important to keep that in mind as a parent. And if you are somebody that grew up in a household like this, it's important to understand that has may have affected you. You learned not to need too much, right? Because you couldn't ask for support, you couldn't ask for help. And so you learned, like, keeping it inside. Emotional conversations felt unsafe or pointless. Like, what is the point in talking about what I need? Because you're going to be dismissive. You're going to laugh. You're going to share it with somebody, right? Are you that parent, right? Be mindful on the way that you are dealing with your child. I understand you may not have understood how to deal with these things, but I feel like if you want to have a connection with your child, it's important for you to work on allowing yourself to understand these things. You were praised for being strong, independent, or easy. So being strong, right? Especially like when I think about Black women, uh, I think people think of being strong as you're not crying, you're just able to keep going. Look at you, you got this. And I have a different definition of being strong. Being strong is able to recognize when you are struggling and when you need support, right? It's not about not crying. It's not about not feeling like you're breaking. If you're feeling like you're breaking, it's important to say that. And if you grew up and you learned to swallow everything, not talk about things, and people's like, "Wow, look at you! You're so strong." That became your identity. And guess what? As we get older, and my primary audience is women, and I work with primarily women. But as what I notice as we get older, our body starts breaking down because guess what? We're holding on to too much, and we don't know how to release it, right? Some subtle signs that you may miss. You hesitate to ask for help, right? You feel uncomfortable with emotional closeness, right? When it gets a little too much, it feels uncomfortable. It's not that you're not able to experience it. It's just that you've never been taught how, you've never seen it. And so you're struggling with that. You over explain or self silence, right? You try to make your point, or you just like, you know what? I'm having a hard time, but I'm just going to be quiet. You feel responsible for others' emotions. That was always me. I wasn't an over explainer. I wouldn't ask for help. And I felt responsible for other people's emotions. I felt like I had to be the solution to everybody's problem. Guess what that is a remedy for? That's a remedy for burnout. Now I can hear people's problems and not feel responsible for them, right? You struggle to identify what you actually feel. I never would articulate what I felt. I would intellectualize the things that I was going through, but I never named those feelings. One of the things I do when I work with people is we have a feelings chart. I'm surprised I don't have one right here in front of me. But in my guided journal, I have a feelings chart. And the thing about identifying how you're feeling, because those feelings are giving you a map, a blueprint to what's going on, right? They're not a fact, but they are very valid. They're trying to tell you something's wrong. And so now I'm able to do that, which is why it saved me. It is so incredibly powerful to be able to do that. But as a child, I was not able to do that. I wasn't able to name what I was feeling. I was feeling all of these things and struggling and not knowing how to deal with it, right? So these are some signs right here. So why this matters as an adult, right? You may confuse emotional distance with stability, right? How many of you are in relationships where the person is emotionally unavailable, but you are still in that situation ship or relationship? It could be with a friend, it could be with a partner. Really being mindful of that, right? Because if you grew up in a system where being emotionally available was not available, being emotionally ready and available wasn't available to you, it's easy to stay in that, even though you're suffering and struggling. If you're like, why am, I have a episode 3-part series all about love. We talk about love and attachment. That is an attachment that you may have to that person because it's a very familiar feeling. Just because a familiar feeling doesn't feel good doesn't mean we're just going to run away. Our body and our system, it loves things that are familiar, right? And it doesn't mean we have to stay in a familiar pattern, but if we're going to break that familiar pattern, we have to understand it's not going to feel good, it's going to feel uncomfortable, right? That's why these attachment situationships that you may find yourself in is so hard, because you are really fighting yourself, right? You may overfunction in relationships. I was definitely somebody that overfunctioned. Try to do the most, right? Try to fix everything, make things okay. You may feel emotionally lonely even when connected. That was also me. I could be around people and still feel alone, right? You may struggle with boundaries or guilt. Like all of these are me. Just put my name next to everything. These are some symptoms or things that may come up for you if you grew up with a parent or caregiver that was emotionally unavailable, um, but present, right? These are some common misconceptions I want to name. My parent did their best can be true and harmful, right? Yes, your parent provided for you, but then they struggled with being emotionally available to you. Remember at the earlier I said emotionally immaturity does not equal bad parenting, bad parents. It just means like this is making sense as to why I struggle the way I struggle. This is not about, some of our parents, especially the ones, I'm not talking about people that may have physically, emotionally abused you or have called you names. I can't, psychological abuse, right? I'm not talking about those that it was just very like, that was abuse. I'm talking about neglect, right? There are some parents where you were neglected, your emotional needs were not taken care of, but they didn't also have that for them. They grew up in survival mode, especially in the Black community, right? Trauma gets passed on through our DNA, right? We see these things, and so we try to do better, but then we don't know how to live life, right? We are survivors. And so be mindful of that. Yes, your parent did provide for you, but there were moments where they didn't provide for you, and because they didn't have the capacity to even do that for themselves. Gratitude doesn't cancel unmet needs, right? Yes, you can be grateful for what's happened, but the reality is that some of your needs may have been unmet. Naming emotional immaturity is not about blame, which you just said, and understanding is the first step towards healing, not rejection, right? Understanding these concepts and what we just talked about, that is the first step to healing because you know what? There's a book by Oprah Winfrey and Bruce Perry, he's a psychiatrist, talked about what happened to you. I love that book for many reasons, but it's a conversation that they have with each other, and he talks about different stuff that's happened and how it may have affected you. I feel like in American culture, we blame people. You have this anxiety, you have this, we giving people diagnosis, and we're naming things as if it's an individual thing. And when I work with people, my thing is to help people see how what's happened to them in their life has created where they are currently, right? And so when you can understand some of the ways and attachments you may have and some of the ways you operate, when you can start to understand that, it can help you work on changing your trajectory and working on healing. So keep this in mind, right? As we're coming to the end, many high functioning, successful adults carry this quietly, right? This is something that you can still operate in life and be fine. That's all you know. It also means you're not broken, you adapt it, right? We are humans and our mind learns how to adapt. It's like, you know what? Mom, dad isn't available. All right, like keep it to yourself. Be more independent, right? Those ways of adapting, they work when, as you're growing up. But then as you get older and more responsibility, those ways that you've learned how to adapt gets a little bit harder to do. But these patterns once protected you. Yes, be clear. And when people like start to understand some of the ways that they've been operating, I say you have to understand that that allows you to survive life. Like, do not beat yourself up for what you had to do to get through some hard moments, right? So as you are learning these things, understand that this is what protected you, right? Have grace with yourself if you are the parent, if you are the child of a parent who struggled with having a parent that wasn't emotionally available or immature, emotionally immature. All right, here's some reflections, right? You know, I love homework assignments. Let's just take a deep breath, right? That was a lot. I love deep breathing, right? It gets me back to baseline. Um, I want you to reflect, right? We talked about a lot. Um, I want you to reflect on when you were emotional as a child, what response did you learn to expect? What did you learn about needing, expressing, or depending on others? This is a really great journal prompt because as you begin to understand how your life has been affected growing up, you can probably start to see some patterns, make connections, right? That I do that really well with people. I help them make connections. Um, this is the homework. The other part of the homework I want you to do over the next few days, just notice, right? When you feel the urge to minimize your emotions, pay attention to that. Make sure you're writing this down. When you stop yourself from asking for support, pay attention to that. When you feel responsible for someone else's mood, I was, oh my God, that was so me. When you tell yourself it's not a big deal, pay attention to that. No correcting, no judging, just notice it. Okay? Just notice those moments. I also want you to pay attention to your body. You know, I have this wellness center. I'm all about understanding the body, the nervous system, because yes, we can intellectualize and talk about all these things, but at the end of the day, sometimes we are holding stuff in our body. So if you're in therapy and you're feeling like I'm doing the work, but there's something else going on, check in with your body, right? So because this topic, it lives in our nervous system, once a day, pause and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? And where do I feel it in my body? Even if the answer is, I don't know, that counts, right? Because guess what? You're pausing, you're allowing your system to try to work on understanding it, right? When the things that I wanted to do, I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I kept working on them. And then my mind started to show me how it was possible. So if you can create intentional time to just pause, grab a feelings chart. If you Google emotion wheel or feelings wheel, grab that feelings wheel and name the emotion that you are feeling in right now, but also pay attention to where it's showing up in your body. For me, it would be my stomach and my back. Sometimes labored breathing, like where it's like I'm not dying, but I would find myself doing like this, right? So that is your homework assignment. Um, so the next episode, we're going to explore the roles children learn to survive emotionally immature homes. What were those roles? How did they look like? We're going to go into that next. Make sure you like either re-listen to this episode, um, do the reflection so that you can start to get more insight into who you were, especially if you don't really understand that part and you've blocked it out a little bit. If you want to follow me, so I, have a wellness center. If you go to stwyt.com, if you're looking for a therapist, if therapist, only if you are in Massachusetts, that is available. We have a wellness center. Next month, we're going to have a couple of those classes online. If you go to stwyt.com, you could find the classes. So we're going to have our trauma-informed yoga class online starting next month. The rest of the classes are going to be in person only. You can find the Wellness Center on TikTok. I'm building it up now, y'all. Instagram and Facebook. You can find the podcast page on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And then I have my personal page, Celeste the Therapist, on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. So if you search Celeste the Therapist, you will find me. You'll find me literally everywhere. So thank you all so much for rocking out with me. I truly appreciate y'all. Thank you for rocking out with this new segment, the Daily Shift. I really enjoy that. I enjoy that segment. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy recording for you all. And until next time, beautiful people, I will talk to you later.